Thank you for tuning in to the Longest Take podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by Cody Leach. Cody Leach is a popular YouTuber and film critic best known for his in-depth reviews of horror movies and other genre films. Since launching his channel in 2016, he's built a loyal audience of over 180,000 subscribers, with his honest, thoughtful takes on movies, games, and pop culture. In 2021, Cody went full-time as a content creator and has since become a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic and a member of the Critics' Choice Association. What are your top 5 favorite movies?
All right, so I'll try to give a little bit of a variety, try to touch on some different genres, except for my top 2, which are both action. But my number 1 movie of all time is Die Hard. It's been since I was a teenager. It's one that I literally watch every single year, sometimes multiple times a year, never get tired of it. I just love that movie to death. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, very close second. Some days it might even be my number 1, or they can tie for number 1. But that's one that, as a kid, I always loved it. I think it's a perfect movie, no matter what cut you watch, even the theatrical one. The way that it just continues to have all these crazy action set pieces that even just hold up today and are still awesome. True Romance, I love that movie to death. As far as gangster crime movies, that one and Goodfellas often kind of swap places for me on which one's my favorite, but love the characters. I think that's one of the movies that I'm actually glad Tarantino didn't direct himself, even though he wrote it, because the way he would have taken it would have been more dark and less fun. So I think the Tony Scott's flavor makes that movie what it is. My favorite horror movie, man, it's just like with Die Hard and T2. I would say I wish I could tie them. Most days I say John Carpenter's The Thing, but today I kind of woke up and I feel like The Lost Boys is my number 1. It's always between those two. Another movie that as a kid, absolutely loved it, watched it all the time. I love the style in it. It's very 80s, but it's like the cool version of the 80s that just lives forever. The music in it. I'm a vampire whore, so vampire movies are right next to slashers and my favorite subgenre of horror. And then my favorite comedy of all time, I'll round it out with Midnight Run. It's a movie with Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. It's one of those two opposite personalities are on a road trip type movie, but you got a bounty hunter, you got the guy that he's hunting. Absolutely hilarious, total comfort movie for me. It's not even a Thanksgiving movie, but I watch it every Thanksgiving just because it gives me comfort. Yeah. So I don't know if it makes any sense, but yeah, we'll go with that for my top 5 for today.
Yeah, there you go. Great choices. Wish you stuck with The Thing, though, because that is my favorite horror movie. But I mean, The Lost Boys, you can't go wrong with that.
It really is. I almost wish I could have gave a top 6 and just cheated and put both of them in there.
Right.
They're both so important to me. Every time I mention one, I feel like I'm cheating on the other.
Yeah. And the 4K transfer for The Lost Boys, by the way, I recently picked that up. That looked pretty fantastic. So, Midnight Run, actually have not seen that, so I'm gonna put that on my list.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And did you get the 4K for T2?
I did. I don't remember much about it other than me being frustrated that it only had one cut. I always get really upset whenever we get a new medium, when we went from tape to DVD and then DVD to Blu-ray to 4K. They always do the bare bones releases, and then 4 or 5 years later then they give you one with all the cuts. And T2 is just one of those movies where I feel like there's no sense in having a release without both the theatrical and the James Cameron cut at this point, because they're both fan favorites. It's just like with Aliens. It's just give us both. Stop screwing around.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it looks great. It's not so there was a lot of that controversy around the way that James Cameron likes to upscale his movies, where it looks a little wonky. But T2, I noticed it more with, I think, Aliens, but T2 I just remember looking pretty fantastic. But yeah, love them. I wish they were able to capture that magic with the later Terminator movies in the series. I think that would have...
Yeah.
That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
for sure.
I still hear whispers that James Cameron's trying to put together another one, but he's technically produced the last couple, and so I don't know if his name even is going to excite people anymore. I really like Terminator Dark Fate, but I know some people absolutely hate that movie. But yeah, none of them, even Dark Fate, as much as I love it, don't come close to the first two. They're just on an island with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dark Fate, honestly, I agree with you. The only thing I would have changed is have better set pieces. Because that's what made T2 great. You had a great story, but you had these impressive bombastic set pieces.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The digital age has yielded a new platform for the town square. How has that affected your viewing of movies? And now that you're a part of that, I'm not going to say discourse, but you're a part of that conversation in terms of being like a content creator, how has that affected like the way you view movies and the way that you watch them now?
Well, it's interesting. So, like, for a long time, and even today, people still kind of say this when it's convenient. They always say, like, you have the critics and then you have everybody else, and they're never on the same page. And for the longest time growing up, it always felt that way. Like when I was a kid and I wanted to go see Kangaroo Jack, and I'm like, they gave it 2 stars. What's going on here? And so it always felt like critics were like these, very snobby people smoking a little pipe, but then, it has to be 5-star prestige cinema. And then you watch something that they recommend and you fall asleep in 5 minutes. But I feel like over the last 15 years or so, we've really bridged that gap. And so you have YouTubers and now you have TikTokers and everything where people like average Joes have become more a part of the conversation versus just film historians and, people have a master's degree in film editing and things like that. And I think it rounds out the conversation a little bit more. Now, there's good and bad that comes with that. You get a lot of people that don't have any business really talking about movies that have a huge following. Some would say I belong to that category, but you have I feel like there's a lot more relatable conversation, and that's what I get a lot from the positive side. Is like people that really love my channel and love what I do, they feel like they can connect with me and kind of connect with film because I make it more relatable, and I talk about it from like a guy that you would just kind of hang out with from that kind of perspective. So I think that that's a good thing. I think it's made people more passionate about talking about movies because they feel like there's more of a middle ground area for them to kind of come and have a meeting of the minds, the town square, as you call it. The negative side of it is that you do get a lot of that negative discourse. You do get people that love to hate everything, that become famous for what they hate versus what they love. And, they have their fan base, and it's a rabid fan base, but I just kind of do my own thing. I don't really fall into that. There's certainly things that I don't like, and I have no qualms with saying it, but I don't make that my personality. I don't think that that's what I'm here to do. You know what I mean? When it happens, but I hope that I like everything.
Yeah, you don't want to go into a movie just being like, I'm going to hate this. There's something about that feels like inauthentic, because it feels like those guys that you talk about that just want to hate everything. It's almost like when a movie's coming out, you're like, well, I already know what this guy's going to say about it. So I could appreciate that you honestly give a fair shake to everything you watch.
I try to.
And yeah, it's crazy that we don't have it that much in this space. Just like based on who I see, there's a few that I follow that I really like, but yeah, you don't see a lot of that fairness really given to. I can understand some big studio movies, like they don't need like the pity of like a fair watch. Like if it's bad, it's bad, but I don't know. Negativity just pisses me off sometimes, because it's like, cool, tell me what you liked about it. Like I can understand what you hate, but you get a lot of that.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of that is on the viewership. Like there's people out there that crave that. They, for whatever reason, they're miserable with some or all aspects of their life. And so they want to go online and just hate something and find other people that hate it, and they can all high five and hate together. And, you see a lot of that even on the spaces where that doesn't belong. Like I have people at least once a week, there's somebody that tells me I don't like anything. And I'm like, I just reviewed a good movie yesterday. I just 4 out of the 5 movies I reviewed last month were positive. There's always like these counter examples, but there's people that just go online to search for the hate, or they just click on the thumbnails where you look pissed off, and then they just kind of assume, oh, well, you just don't like anything, or everybody on YouTube doesn't like anything. And it's distressing sometimes, when there's a lot of really good stuff out there, or even in some of the movies that are mediocre, there's a lot of good things about them that are worth mentioning. Doesn't mean that they're awesome, but not every movie is a 0, just like not every movie is a 10. And we kind of live in that era where I think a lot of people only want to hear one or the other. They either want to hear it's going to change their life, or this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And most movies are not that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's personal movies where I could be like, yeah, I'll give that a 10, or I'll give that a 0. But like in actuality, like, no, like everything kind of floats in between there. And to act otherwise feels like I said, inauthentic. So does like doing this YouTube thing, does that take away from when you watch movies now? Do you feel like you're not enjoying something as well as you could be? Because even subconsciously you could be like just sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm gonna write this down in my review. Like, is there anything that kind of separates you from that viewership because of what you do now?
That's a good question, and I think it changes case by case. I think most movies I'm able to just sit there and escape, especially if they're really good. Like, I'm not sitting there kind of taking notes with my brain. I think it's the lesser experiences where that tends to be the case, where if I go into a movie and it's just really dragging, or if everything is falling apart, then I'm kind of writing notes in my head sometimes. But I do try to prevent myself from doing that most times. The biggest casualty for me is just being able to shut that side of my brain off just when I'm at home, because movies used to be my escape. That's one of the reasons why I loved it so much that I decided to dive fully into it. But nowadays, with me being full time, I don't find that most times when I have downtime, I'm like, let me just throw on something just to enjoy it. Let me just throw on Tommy Boy and just have fun. I'm thinking like, okay, you got 2 hours. What could you be watching that you could review? Or what could you be watching that you could rank? Or what do we have coming up? And that's the hardest part of my brain to shut off, because I'm just always in work mode. I'm always thinking, what could I be doing better? What could I be doing more? And it's hard for me sometimes to just sit back and enjoy downtime nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have like I guess you'd call it day job, or is this like what you do, full stop?
I've been full time just over 3 years, but I've been doing this for it'll be 9 years in September. And so I had a construction job for a couple of years when I started this channel. And then I worked in aviation. I worked in a production line building airplanes for 4 years. And so most of my YouTube career, I had a full-time job, a very demanding full-time job. And then this was just kind of a side thing that I had to find the time and the energy to keep up with. But September 2021, I think, September 2021, I left that job and dove into this full-time.
Nice. And would you say that you don't need to give salary or anything, but has it been like a wash, or even like better than what you were doing before having that full-time gig?
Better in every single way, to the point where I wish I did it a lot sooner. If you had asked me just a month or two before I went full-time, are you ever going to go full-time? I would have told you no. Because YouTube is so unpredictable, and the income is always up and down depending on how well your videos are doing and whether or not something just happens to take off, which you can never predict. Right. What the movie, especially with what I do, whether there's actually a good movie month, if there's sometimes you have a lull, like March kind of sucked. There wasn't really anything in March aside from Snow White that anybody wanted to talk about.
Yep.
And so the different times of the year, all those reasons added up. But aside from year one, where I genuinely panicked on some of those low months because I wasn't used to it, I've only grown since then. I've grown significantly since then. Financially, I'm doing significantly better now than I was even with a well-paying full-time job. So that side of it's good, and it's pretty fulfilling. Like there's times where it feels like work. There's times where I have to turn the camera on and I really don't want to. There's times I have to cover films that I really don't have any interest in. There's times where just the amount of grind I'm putting into it isn't equaling like a really nice financial month, and sometimes it is. So that's distressing. But those sporadic issues aside, like what's the phrase? If you love what you do, you're not working a day in your life. Yeah. It's kind of one of those situations. Like when you boil it down to it, like I get to talk about movies every day for a living. That's pretty awesome. So yeah. I try, even days where I'm down on it, I'm like, shut up. Quit bitching, get to work. Yeah,
it really is like a perfect gig, especially if you're fucking cinephile, This is just like the work side of my brain, but so you worked on a production line. What did you do exactly? Because I come from a few factories that I'm working at one now, but that's what that's what my career is. So what were you doing?
I worked for a company called Gulfstream. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. They build business jets, basically for all like the rich elites. Yeah, but I worked on the production floor after the actual fuselage of the plane was joined and the wires were like temporarily ran, I was a part of the team that would permanently affix the wires to the aircraft and cut and splice and do all the wiring for all the connectors. So it was all electrical work, and all the structural work was like just before me. So it was literally putting the plane together for the first time.
Oh, nice. Not for Boeing though, right?
No.
that would
Boeing was like their number one competitor.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Considering recent news, I guess it's good that you guys weren't on that side of it. But
yeah, exactly.
Did you guys have an EHS or like a safety person at your job?
I mean, they had safety people, but are you talking about like inspecting your work and
or
stuff?
Just like a general safety guy that like, would implement different programs there, do this or that?
They would always kind of unofficially dub somebody like the safety guy of the crew of whatever team you're on, but they had like literally a whole standalone building like just outside of our front door for all the medical stuff. So they took a lot of that pretty seriously. Luckily, there wasn't too frequent of an event where people would get hurt. They took it very seriously, where if you got hurt, you would have to take like drug tests and everything to make sure that you were like of stable mind. So yeah, they were much more hardcore on quality control on QC than they were medical and safety stuff.
Okay, yeah, I only asked because I'm a senior safety specialist for this chemical company. And I always like to get like the perspective as to like what workers think, because most jobs I've been at or I hear from, they're always like, oh, it's the fucking safety guy, so it's always interesting to kind of get that, just kind of see how things were in these other industries.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty strict, and everybody kind of had an understanding at this company about like what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And our team, there wasn't really a whole lot of danger. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there was at most the most dangerous thing that we would have to deal with is when they're actually lifting the plane and moving it, because it would be like on these big pulley machines, and you think about how heavy a plane is, and basically they would just tell everybody like get out of the area, and everybody would clear out. And there was really nobody that was going to fight that. Like, no, I want to stand on the plane. You know what I mean? So our team didn't have to deal with a whole lot of that. There was other teams that actually had to be suspended up, in the air and kind of do work on the actual aircraft, where that's probably more of a day-to-day thing for them. For us, with wiring, it was all quality. It was all about what you're actually doing, whether it's working, whether it's correct, whether it's to spec. Because when you're in the air, you hear a knocking noise, you can't pull over on the highway. You know what I mean? So that was kind of their focus on our side more so than safety. Safety was just kind of a given.
Yeah, of course. And did you need any sort of electrical experience to be in this role then?
No, which is terrifying. But they go pretty all in with the training. Like there's a few months of attending classes and shadowing somebody before they even let you do anything on your own. But the crazier that the production schedule got, the more lax that they would get on that. So like, as much as we just joked about Boeing, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen more of that type of stuff, because sometimes it was kind of scary. Like, you're letting that guy cut wires, and okay. Like, I had no electrical experience when I started there, but I'm a fast learner, and so I did pretty well. But there was others that did not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sorry to get on a tangent. Like I said, it's just my dumb like other job brain. I'm just like, I'm like just as interested to hear about like industry.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's cool though. Definitely, it's definitely a lot more exciting to have that kind of job than like another type of job, Yeah, it's especially because you know what you're building, right? You could see some planes and you're like, okay, I contributed to the creation of that. And I guess you get that same rewarding sensation on YouTube, right? I imagine there's some times where if you see a video that gets a lot of views, or you get fans that reach out to you, I imagine that's a pretty rewarding experience.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, when I meet people in person, which I've only had good interactions, is very cool, and it kind of makes all like the troll comments and everything just seem like it's nothing. It's just noise.
Yeah.
And even having even having times where like somebody just says, "Hey, thank you for recommending this underknown movie. I would have never known about it. Now it's one of my favorites." Like that to me is super gratifying. It's
Summer
like
of '84. That was you
yes.
for me.
Okay.
I watched it because of you, and I fucking loved it. So
Awesome. Yeah, those are my favorite, honestly, because I know how important it is. Like, yeah, my dad was kind of that conduit for me for most of those movies, but like how cool it is to have a memory of like this person turned me onto this. And it's like this special little movie that you feel like only you and like 5 other people on earth know about versus, you know, some of the ones that I listed that everybody knows about. And when I find out that like I'm that guy for somebody, it's very cool.
yeah, hell yeah. And on the other side of it, so you've been doing a lot of video game content too. So you you have an expectation going into a movie, what you like or dislike. What's that experience that you're looking for in video games?
I mean, it really depends on the game. Like, of course, you want to have fun. That's the main thing with any video game. But fun takes different forms. You know, like there's some that are more puzzle, intellectual type fun. There's others that's just mindless. Like, let's just chop up, you know, all these enemies. Or you have like Call of Duty where you're just going to like shoot a bunch of fools. I tend to lean much more nowadays into really wanting a good story and good characters. Because games are all, you know, mostly all fun to some degree, and we're starting to get to a point where we've got so many that they all feel derivative of other things. Like there's a bunch of Grand Theft Auto style games, there's a bunch of Call of Duty style games, but part of the reason why I'm always a big PlayStation guy, like PlayStation seems to be a console and a studio that really hones in on that. Whether it's God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, they're very story driven and character driven games, and the gameplay is great, but like I latch into the story more than anything. So that's kind of where I'm at now, which kind of bridges the gap between video games and movies, because now I'm kind of expecting the same thing. But that's really what I want. Like sometimes it's cool to just have a fun one. Like last year, one of the only games that I had a lot of fun with was Helldivers 2. There's not really much of a story or characters with that. It's just like a gameplay loop that you have a lot of fun with, and it's kind of addicting. And sometimes that's all you need. But I tend to be much more of a story person nowadays. If it's a really cool concept and I feel like there's going to be some badass characters or some really emotional stuff like Last of Us, that's something that sticks with me more than the gameplay nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because when I had first heard of your channel, when I come across any new channel, there's 2 things that I look for. I see what they thought of The Last Jedi, which I think you were maybe 3 stars on it or something. If you were to gauge it, 3 out of 5, or
that sounds accurate. It's always been one of those complicated movies to me where I'm like, there's things that I like about it, but do I really enjoy it? I don't know. I think I've probably lessened on it over time, if that counts for anything. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's that one, because at the time everybody just wanted to shit on it. So if someone gives it a fair shake, I appreciate it. And The Last of Us Part 2, you gave it a rave review, and I appreciated the hell out of that because for some reason nobody else wanted to.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite games of the year it came out. And
it's incredible.
What would your top 5 for video games be?
Metal Gear Solid, the original one, is my number 1. Always has been, probably always will be. A very close second is Resident Evil 4. That was a game. Like Metal Gear Solid is one that just felt like this is unlike anything I have ever played before. Like that was the first time I played a game where it really felt like this massive evolution. Like I grew up with Sonic and Sega Genesis and Comic Zone and things like that. And then you put in Metal Gear Solid and you're just like, games can be this? The sky's the limit. And so I just adore that game. Resident Evil 4, I was so late to the Resident Evil party, and that's currently my favorite video game franchise. But Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil experience, and I was so damn addicted to that game. I think I played the GameCube version for like 7 months straight and just didn't want to play anything else. I beat that game since then. Like every time they have a new remaster version, I always buy it. I always try it. I probably beat that game start to finish more than any other game in existence. When they had the recent little remake that came out, I thought that was phenomenal and played that until I was sick of it. Got the platinum and everything. So like that was one that either version of that game, or you can combine them together, Resident Evil 4 is like life for me. And then it gets a little tricky after that. So you got those 2. I really like... I'll say Uncharted 2 but Uncharted 4 is kind of like a very close tie for me. Either of those games belong on that list for me. Love the Nathan Drake character. Love the gameplay in those, just the adventure of it, the over-the-top action. I think they're incredible. I want to throw a Splinter Cell game on there, but I don't know which one I would pick. Like, Chaos Theory was great. I'm one of the few people who really loved Splinter Cell Conviction. That's where it kind of became a little bit more action-based and a little more character-driven. The recent... They're really 3 games, but now they just release them as one big game called like World of Assassins. But the latest Hitman game, I think, is amazing. Like, that game came out, I think the first one might have came out 7 years ago, and I still will go back and play those and just get sucked back in and get addicted. Like, they just have a full open map that you could just attack from 7-8 different angles, and it's just always a fun new experience. I think as far as open world, like sandbox type games, that might be the best that's ever been created. Was that 5 or was that 4? I'll give Last of Us. I should have said Last of Us at 3. I don't know why I missed that one, but yeah, Last of Us would be my 3rd, right behind Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil 4. I love Last of Us Part 2, and that would certainly be my top 10 if I went that far. But the original Last of Us, I think, is the best story that's ever been told in a video game. Some of the best characters. I really like the gameplay. I know some people are down on the gameplay, but I think it's still a fun game to play. But it's just what I was saying earlier, story-wise, I've never had a video game hit me the way that one did. And I've replayed it numerous times, and it's always just emotional. And I adored the TV series. Can't wait for season 2. So Last of Us is huge for me.
Yeah. Are you going to get a code or anything for season 2?
No, I reached out to them. They're being very weird. Typically when you reach out for screeners, especially TV stuff, like, especially if you have a already pre-established relationship with some of these studios, it's not terribly difficult to get them unless they're just not giving out screeners, which is kind of a rarity, but does happen. And I covered the hell out of the first season, and they gave me a screener for me to do it. And so I reached out for the second one. I got an email message saying that I was denied, or like they said there was a limited amount of them, and so I didn't make the cut. Okay, fine. You can't win them all. But the more I talked with a lot of my peers and everybody else that requested it, I don't think anybody that is a video-based critic or a video-based journalist got them. I think they only sent them out to written trades and podcasts, which is a very weird strategy. Like on YouTube, the reviews dropped today. On YouTube, you have IGN, and that is it as far as like significant channels on YouTube. The only other two I could find after like 4 hours of being on YouTube only had a collective between the two channels of 400 views, which shows how small those channels are. TikTok, couldn't find anything on TikTok. One woman did a little short reaction, and then the rest of it was just people reacting to the tweet reviews. So I don't know what they're doing. And I've heard people say that some were given the full season, and those are the ones that we're seeing reactions today. Other people were only allowed to watch the first episode, and they've been told not to say anything until the episode drops. So I don't know what Warner Brothers and Discovery and HBO are doing with this one. You'd think they'd be extremely confident in it, but they're being very weird about how they're allocating screeners for this season. Yeah.
Interesting, because I know Rotten Tomato and Metacritic, it's at a pretty good score right now, because like you said, you know, the all those outlets, they were able to receive copies to watch. But yeah, I don't know if like a part of me thinks maybe because of the kickback from the game, maybe there's like some hesitancy. I don't know, but I imagine that it's going to be received better than the game was, unless they're just like, we don't care, we're going to do it like exactly how it was. But I don't know. Yeah, I was interested because I saw that dropped today.
Yeah, I don't know. I've thought that too. I don't know if it's them being gun shy because of how vitriol the reaction to the game was, or some people have said they're trying to contain spoilers. But I've already seen people on Twitter. I haven't seen it myself, luckily. I've heard from a friend that there's already people on Twitter that have seen the full season that are flat out spoiling major things. Like I know you're probably aware they're splitting the second game into 2 seasons.
Yep.
And so there's people out there that are already saying where this first half ends and how they've restructured everything. And so to me, it's like, well, throw out that spoiler theory because those people are just saying whatever they want. Right. So yeah, I don't know. It's very weird and frustrating for such a high profile show to be treated so strange with the critic side of things. You would think you would want to create buzz, especially, like, not to say that I wouldn't have any chance of not liking Last of Us season 2, but pretty good chance I'm going to like it. I covered the hell out of the first season and both the games, loved all of them. So I thought it especially weird that I got denied for it, because you would think that they would, if anything, they would be cynical and be like, "Oh, this guy will say anything nice about Last of Us,"
right?
Which is not true, but I could get the impression from their side.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out once the episodes start airing. But yeah, the thing is, like, usually if they're hush hush about it, I mean, you do get in it. It's not like the people in these outlets are just like robots, right? They're people like us. So if they're receiving it well, it's a good indicator that, like, there's a bunch of YouTube content creators that are going to give it like a good first watch, Yeah. So we'll see when it drops. Speaking of games that I think need an adaptation, I recently beat the Dead Space remake finally. Mm-hmm. If that were to finally become a movie or something, who would be the best person to adapt that besides John Carpenter? Man. Because I think he talked about it before, right?
Yeah. I
would love that.
I would love that in his heyday. I would be very nervous now. Like, he's my favorite director, so I got nothing but love for him. But I don't know. He's so cynical and jaded now that I don't know what a new John Carpenter film would look like. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of out the window now that he's done Alien, but I would have said Fede Alvarez would have been a great pick just because of his style and the way that he has kind of these contained environments, and I know that the gore side of things would be in very good hands. There's a certain amount of James Wan style that I think would be pretty cool. He's one of those directors that's interesting because he's done so many awesome things, and he's literally made 3 iconic franchises at this point, which is pretty unheard of. Even Wes Craven, he made 2, and we lose our minds about that. But he's done so much, and he's been a part of the horror discussion so much that I almost want somebody else to kind of get a chance. As great as he would be with it. Trying to think. I think I even clicked that. The guy that made Evil Dead Rise, Lee Cronin, I think is his name. He's doing the new Mummy movie, but even his style would be pretty cool, just because Evil Dead, small, contained environments. Seeing him in a little bit more of a space environment would be pretty neat. I think maybe Neil Marshall, although I kind of have a love-hate relationship with him. Like, he did the Descent that I loved, and all that he brought to the Descent is what I would think Dead Space would be really cool for him. I'm not as high on Dog Soldiers, which I know a lot of other people love. And then he did that Hellboy movie, which I don't even know if we could really blame him for that. And then, I mean, that would probably be my first picks there. I'm sure there's probably another one that I would, if I went down a list of names, would think of. But Fede Alvarez and James Wan were the first 2 like big names I thought of.
Yeah, and I think James Wan is hitting a Lovecraftian adaptation soon, or he wants to. I think Call of Cthulhu. So just speaking of like cosmic horror or Lovecraft, I mean, I feel like that'd be perfect to hit Dead Space with the necromorphs and everything. And with the Descent, I mean, that claustrophobia would also be perfect on the space station too. So honestly, if it wasn't for Hellboy, I would definitely be like, yeah, Neil Marshall. But I mean, like you said, that's not fully his fault.
Yeah.
It's like, I want there to be a Dead Space movie, but the ratio of good video game adaptations to bad ones, it's not good odds to there. So
I think we're starting to crawl out of that rubble. I think over the last couple of years, we're starting to get them. It seems to be more with TV, which I'm kind of glad, because there's a lot of video games that I really don't want them to even waste their time trying to make a movie. Like I've always said, Metal Gear Solid would be a ridiculous movie. There's just way too much to do to try to get that into even a 3-hour movie. So I'm glad that Last of Us succeeded so much, and then Fallout right behind it, because I feel like a lot of these properties are just better when you let them breathe and be fleshed out. I don't know if Dead Space is that. I think you could do Dead Space in a 2-hour movie. That would be cool. But it gives you a little bit more room, a little bit more room to explore certain things. And I think we're heading towards an era where, like in the 2000s, where comic book movies started to actually be legit. I think we're heading to that with video games. I hope.
Yeah, because even though a Minecraft movie wasn't great, just you look at the return on it. I hope studio execs don't look at it like, oh, we need to make it silly and just for kids like this. I hope they look at it like, what if we actually tried to make a good adaptation with a good IP? But I mean, even with the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I wasn't a fan of it really, but it destroyed numbers.
Yeah.
And if more games were adapted into shows, I think, like you said, that's a good call. Because if you think about it, when you're playing a game, you're playing that for like sometimes 20 to 30 hours. You know, condense that down to a 2-hour movie. Dead Space, you could do it. But especially RPGs, you gotta portion that shit out a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping this is a golden era for it. Really, really hoping for that. Just gives us more good shit to watch, you know?
Exactly.
And so you've got your big ass collection behind you. I'm sure you have more than that. You collect 4Ks, correct?
Yeah, Blu-rays and 4Ks.
What's the best looking picture of anything that you've gotten?
I don't know if I could say definitively best of my whole collection. I can just say the one that I saw most recently that was impressive was The Hitcher, the one that came out last year, which was a big deal because that movie's been basically out of print since DVD. So that was one that looked incredible. It's always one of those where you kind of want it to look amazing, but you don't want to lose some of the grittiness and the graininess. At least some of us nerds are feel that way. Like it's kind of what caused the controversy with the James Cameron stuff, which
looks way too clear.
Yeah, some of it. And you know what? Like, I wasn't quite as scathing on it as most people. Maybe that's just because I was excited I could finally watch True Lies again. But that was certainly the most egregious of the three was True Lies, where it just kind of had that sheen to it. But I think there's something to be said about when you can up-res and up-convert an old movie and still maintain kind of that natural grain look. And I think they did that really well with The Hitcher. And for a movie that's not like a big budget, you know, Terminator 2, where there's just so many visuals that you can look at and kind of have a feast for your eyes, it's much more of a low-budget, you know, thriller, horror, Western movie. There's a lot of great cinematography in that movie. And so that was one that recently, for just having a cool set and being able to watch it on 4K was enough, but the fact that they actually made it look good was like this extra little bonus for me. So that's one that I'll say is a recent one.
Yeah, I'll have to pick that up. I remember when it dropped. I didn't grab it though, which is crazy because I pick up there's this store by me that sells like all the Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, all those new releases. I go in there and I spend so much. I spend too much money going in there and trying to get what I can.
Yeah,
but I need to check that one out. And
I think it's God looking out for me that I don't have anything like that near me. Because I used to go and be that way with Best Buy, and then there was a place called Movie Stop, which was like the movie version of GameStop, and I used to spend a bunch of money there. And then both of those, you know, Movie Stop closed, and then Best Buy just got out of the game. So now it's all online boutiques. If I had a store I could go hang out at, yeah, I'd be broke.
Yeah, what's your top boutique seller?
I tend to stick with Diabolic DVD, which is more just kind of like a retail that kind of compiles all of them, just because I have a really big problem with forgetting what I've pre-ordered. Where sometimes I'll get excited for something and I'll pre-order it, and then months later I'll see it. I'm like, oh, I got to pre-order that, and then I'll end up having two come to me. But Shout Factory / Scream Factory is one that I probably bought the most from. I'm becoming a really big fan of Umbrella Entertainment. They actually sent me 2 little sets not too long ago, just because I gave a lot of coverage to their Terrifier Art Attack at the end of last year. And you've got Arrow always does really good stuff. Trying to think of what the company was. There's a company that just did the Trick or Treat movies, and they had like 3 different box sets that came out. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know if it's Synapse or something like that. Maybe it was Second Sight. It was one of those two, or maybe I'm completely fucking it up. But I tend to be most impressed with the box art. As weird as that is, like the disc could be garbage and I would still be like, oh, this is cool. I really like when they have new artwork and they actually have like a cool box and some cool inserts, something to make it like just tangibly cool. that separates it from being able to just click on it on a streaming service. So that's why like Scream Factory has always been one of my favorites, because they always do their own custom new artwork stuff, and I'm really big into that.
Yeah. Right here, I got this recently from Umbrella Entertainment, their Pulse, and it's this really nice box set. But yeah, I picked up Virtuosity on 4K the other day, and I don't even think it's all that great of a movie, but it came in this little box set, and I don't know, it's like the little kid brain of mine. I'm like, ooh, booklet, ooh, it's in a box.
Yep.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've always been partial to the Criterion Collection, but that was like my first boutique seller. So I think I'm just like, I've got a soft spot for them.
But my thing with Criterion, like, I think they do really good stuff and their box sets look really nice, but most of their movies are movies I either haven't seen or haven't heard of. Like, they're very much like a cinephile group.
Yeah.
And anytime I hear people like go through the Criterion closet and they pick out these movies, it makes me feel like I'm not even a true movie fan, because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck any of these you just picked are. Like, I'd be in there like, No Country for Old Men, I know this one.
Yeah, which that looks fantastic. That 4K they released. Are you a Godzilla fan?
Not at all. Godzilla -1 is literally the only one I've ever seen that I liked.
Man, I was gonna say they just dropped Godzilla versus Biollante. You're not gonna enjoy that one at all. If you don't like old Godzilla, it's very much that cheesy, but it looks incredible. They did a really great job with it. And you were talking about out of print movies before. That was one that you couldn't get. Godzilla vs. Biollante was like lost forever. But yeah, I love watching those Criterion Closet videos. But I mean, even me, someone who collects a lot of Criterion, I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen any of these choices that this guy picked. But still, every time I go to like a horror convention, they've always got like a Vinegar Syndrome table. They usually get Shout Factory there, all those guys. So that's when you could spend all your money if you don't have a movie store. Wait until you go to a convention and buy a whole bunch of shit.
Oh yeah.
And then something else I wanted to ask. So I notice on YouTube you collaborate a lot with other YouTubers. You like to network. A lot of channels that I would say have like a lot less subscriber count than you. Not like it matters, but it seems like you make it a thing to be able to like actually network, and you know, it's kind of like building a community with other creators. I'm just curious to know, like, what's your mindset behind that?
Well, networking was very important early on in my channel. Like, I had people that I kind of discovered, became friends with, collaborated with regularly, that I'm still very good friends with. And so that was, to me, it created the opportunity for us to all kind of learn and grow together. You know, we were never the type of people that felt competitive with each other, which sometimes can be very toxic on YouTube or just any kind of social media platform. So like, if I tried something and it didn't work, or if I learned the hard way on something, I'd relay that information, and then, you know, like my buddy Sean Chandler would do the same thing to me, relay something over, and you know, that was very important early on. As I've grown, I still think it's very important, but I do it for very different reasons. I've told this story a number of times, but the day that it kind of clicked for me was, I think it was like maybe 4 years ago or something, and I saw it was like a major trade, or like a major podcaster was doing this interview and talking about YouTube, and they asked this person, like, what's an underrated YouTube channel that you can shine some light on? And their answer was Dead Meat. And this is no hate to Dead Meat. They're awesome with what they do. But even at the time, they had like 3 million subscribers.
Oh, wow.
And so that answer just really, like, it kind of just rubbed me wrong, where I'm like, of course, like, if you love Dead Meat, that's cool. But that wasn't the question. The question was, what's an underrated channel you could shine some light on? And you shined light on a channel that does not need any help. Yeah. And so to me, that kind of clicked for me that day. And I was like, it seems like a lot of channels, or a lot of people, as they grow and they become kind of, you know, the quote unquote elite, they kind of forget where they came from. And they don't tend to pay any attention to anybody that's starting out or anybody that's currently growing. And so I kind of took the be the change you want to see approach. And so I opened myself up a lot more to accepting requests and even kind of reaching out to people. And and trying to be that guy who's, I would consider myself successful on YouTube. And I know a lot of people who are just starting or have been doing it for a few years that, are slowly growing, kind of being, one, a friend first and foremost, but two, being somebody that they can get some of that information off of that we used to have to learn the hard way. They can reach out to me, hey, have you ever tried this? What do I do here? And I actually have an answer because I've been doing it for almost a decade. And doing collaborations and shining a light on some of these channels where luckily a lot of my audience base is very willing to go other places and go and check out other channels if I tell them to, ask them to, if I guest over there. And so I like being able to do that too, where, you might have a channel with 1,000 subs, but if they seem cool, if they have a good idea for a video and I have the time, I'll go do it. It doesn't matter to me. And then they get opened up to a little bit of new audience members. And if they're a fan of mine, I genuinely think they appreciate the fact that I do stuff like that. And I know what that would have meant to me when I was starting. If I reached out to somebody who was, 200,000 subs when I was in less than 10K. And so I never thought that there was even a chance of that happening. So I never bothered with it, or the ones that I did, I never heard anything back. And so I kind of want to be the opposite of that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great answer too, because I mean, shockingly enough, you don't see that too ofhan.
You never see it.
Yeah.
Never see it. That's the shame. That's what drives it so much for me, is just, I hate that you don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I think every time I see that you're collaborating with someone new, I always try to leave a comment on there. I'm like, love that you're just, you keep networking. That's always so great to see. And yeah, because it really is a community thing, I think, where it should be. Because like it goes back to that town hall thing that I mentioned earlier. I mean, the best way to like really build that up is, you bring more people in, or everybody in your circle, you're like, hey, go check that out over there. And it helps because it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt to grow. So definitely, I've always appreciated that about your channel. And then this is how I like to bookend everything. So, and this could be personally, professionally, whatever. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then another thing to kind of add on that, have you ever thought about writing or playing a role, like a creative role in like filmmaking?
Well, that's kind of my long-term goal, actually. I don't know how long it will be, but I definitely want to at least try to write a film. I've got a couple different ideas, one of them a vampire idea that I'm most excited about, that I just kind of need to get the motivation and the time to sit down and actually do it. And when that'll happen, I'm not sure, but I definitely do want to, at least, even if it's only once, get the experience of working in a film. Whether it's writing it, whether it's a small role, whatever it is. And I do think that that's possible. I think there's certain people that I've met. There's certain creatives that I've got a good relationship with, where I feel like if I put the work in, it wouldn't be the most difficult thing in the world. It's just a matter of whether I'm delusional or not, one, and two, whether it happens. But as far as YouTube and everything goes, like, I just hope that the channel continues to grow. I hope that continues to be a successful thing for me. I would dread ever having a time where either I start to fail or YouTube starts to fail and I have to go back and go to a 9-to-5 again. I'll do it if I have to, obviously. But I just hope that continues to grow. But outside of just continuing what I'm doing now and growing with that, I do want to create a film or be a part of the creative process in some way. I think that's kind of the end goal.
Awesome. Yeah. And the really cool thing about making a film now, because I recently did a short film just a few weeks ago, beginning of March. Lens Rental is this website. You could rent like ARRI cameras, which it's ARRI. Those are the cameras that a lot of movies and theaters use. It's like $2,000 to get it for a week, so it's not really all that feasible monetary wise. But the point is that, if you don't have the hardware, if you don't have this or that, it's not hard at all to outsource it. It's just the key is like finding a good cast and then fellow creatives who are going to help you bring it to life. And I mean, in the role that you're in now in YouTube, I mean, that shouldn't be hard at all for you to really It's just a matter of, like you said, getting a project written, completed, and then just pull the trigger on it. So
exactly.
Overall, then that's like say like a 5-year plan. That's kind of what you're looking at. Is there anything else in there that you'd also try to do in that time?
That's the one that I kind of have my sights set on the most. There's certainly some other things that I'm curious about. Like I just this past year got accepted into the Critics' Choice Association, which, you know, allows me to go to LA and go to their award show. It certainly opens up some other opportunities. So there's some other things like that, just continuing to kind of legitimize what I do a bit beyond just the guy on YouTube that I'm curious about pursuing and seeing what opportunities that creates. Like I've never really been somebody who's strove towards doing interviews and press junkets and things like that, but maybe that's something I can start to explore and see if it adds any value to what I do. Like a lot of the more direct interaction with movie premieres and things, and not being so detached from it all the way over here in Georgia, exploring some of that would certainly be appealing for me. Maybe even more of a longer goal than 5 years and doing anything with the movie. I could see a very possible chance of me relocating at some point to be a little bit more close to a city where there's more opportunities. Like the closest city next to me that has even just screenings for critics is Atlanta, and that's a 4-hour drive and then a 4-hour drive home. So I really don't do it very often at all. I've only done it actually 4 times in the 8 years I've been doing this. So like cities like Austin, Texas, where I've visited numerous times for film festivals and other things, is a city I could see myself maybe living at some point. Maybe after my kids are all out of the house. I really don't know. But there's other things on the horizon. But the one that I'm most curious about actually branching off and trying to do something with is pursuing some kind of involvement in a movie, whether it's my movie or somebody else's.
Awesome. Are you southern Georgia or northern Georgia?
Right outside of Savannah, so like the southern east coast of Georgia.
Gotcha. Yeah, Atlanta would be the closest hub for you. But
I hate Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I definitely would not want to live there.
So one of the facilities that at least I used to oversee, we have a specialist over there now, so I don't travel as much. I used to go to Chattanooga. So Chattanooga, Tennessee is kind of right there by the border of Georgia. My counterpart down there, she actually lives in Georgia, but like way up north. But they would always say either you fly into Chattanooga or you fly into Atlanta. And I'm like, there ain't no way in hell I'm flying into Atlanta. I think that's like the busiest airport possibly in the country, right? They always say you have to get there like 4 hours before your flight sometimes, and that's just...
I've never been there, so I'm not sure. Like maybe I've avoided it. I always hear LAX is the horror story, but maybe Atlanta's its terrible cousin over on the East Coast.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, hopefully sometime soon get to see you, you know, writing some things or getting a part of some projects.
That'd be cool.
It's hard, like you said, being in Georgia. It just kind of has you away from where a lot of things are. But if you could get a good enough group local to you, I mean, you don't need something like, you know, LA or Austin, Texas. You can maybe outsource to someone to do post-production from there, right? That's always something. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. I think that'll be really cool to see. And honestly, I was going to mention this too, because you talked a little bit about interviews. So some of my favorite, I don't know how often you've done it, but I really enjoyed when you had on like the Winnie the Pooh guys, right? You had them on. I'm trying to think, have you had many other creators on to talk with?
No, hardly any, honestly. Like I've done a couple of red carpets at Fantastic Fest. Like I got a little brief stint with Damian Leone and with Lauren Lavera, and I got to talk to Halle Berry briefly, although I blacked out the entire time. I had Lauren Lavera and David Jaffe, who created God of War and Twisted Metal, on my channel to talk about Last of Us a couple years ago. But I really haven't done a whole lot else. I kind of get a little bit of anxiety, honestly, about doing any kind of live stream or anything on my channel with somebody like a creative or somebody that I respect or whatever, because I just always have fear that like the internet's gonna fuck up or my mic's gonna go out. Like there's always something that I'm like, that's what my mind is focusing on the entire time. and looking like an unprofessional jackass in front of them. It's never happened. But for some reason, that's always a big anxiety that I have that kind of prevents me from trying to hook up more live streams and stuff. But being able to do more red carpets or being able to do more sit down interviews, just if anything else, just to kind of have supplemental stuff to put into my reviews, that would be really cool. Like if I ask something that pertains to something that I either liked or disliked in the movie and being able to put a clip in, that's kind of the most appeal for me. I don't know if I'd ever want to be one of those channels that just starts to do interview videos, because as cool as it is for a personal experience, people don't really click on those. It doesn't matter how big of a channel you are. I don't care if you're Collider, IGN, like people don't really click on interviews. Whereas if I incorporate that content, it's got a lot more use for me. But yeah, that's kind of one of my comfort zones that I kind of want to bust through a little bit more in the future.
Yeah, and that would be great, especially like you said, to kind of weave it into your reviews. It definitely adds, I think, well-needed context. And then, yeah, people don't want to sit there and just watch two people talking. But if you ever did that kind of form of doing like an interview, pop it onto Spotify or something. That's when the podcasting piece of it can really come into play. But yeah, it's definitely, I've appreciated I think it was only the Lauren Lavera and the Winnie the Pooh guys, I think, that I saw on your channel. But that's definitely something that, if you're wanting to get into the field, it's always good to get a little bit more of that perspective from folks who are doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I'm trying to do. Obviously with this podcast, trying to get every angle of the filmmaking experience at this point, you know? But I'm done with my questions. So I want to kind of give the floor to you to maybe plug something coming from you, any projects that you've heard of on the horizon, just really anything, any good message you want to leave out on.
Gotcha. Well, we're kind of still in the slower part of the year, but we do have Sinners coming out very soon, which is a big movie that I'm looking forward to. As I keep going back to, I love vampire stuff. I was invited to their press screening today in Atlanta, and it's actually on the Monday, which is, 4 days before it comes out. So there's a chance that I'll go see that if the embargo isn't something stupid. And then Until Dawn, right after that, I'll do a review for that too, which sounds like could be pretty cool. As far as a big project coming up, I am going to do a Final Destination review series when Bloodlines is on the horizon. I've shockingly not reviewed any of those films yet, so that'll be a really fun one to go through. And it's been a while since I've done a review series. I think it might be over a year. So that'll be something kind of fun, kind of old school for my channel to do. I have a video which could end up being really cool. It could end up being maybe a little redundant, but I never know until I put it out and see how many people are interested. My patrons picked a topic for me to do a tier list off of the big three, Freddie, Michael, and Jason, and just review or just kind of rank them based off of their intimidation factor in each movie. So kind of a different angle to talk about similar things I've already said, but go at it in a different way. So that's coming, I think, within this week. I'll get that cranked out, and then hopefully summertime will be cool. Summertime for the last 2 years has kind of sucked, where we haven't really gotten a lot of great blockbusters, and most of the movies underperform and underwhelm. And so I'm hoping this year will be a little better. You got Mission Impossible, you got a few others I'm excited about, but summertime is always kind of a bit of a wild card before we get into my Super Bowl season, which is September and October. But yeah, big projects. Those are some that are kind of on the horizon for the channel.
Yeah, and luckily this summer we at least have a couple powerhouses in Superman, the new Jurassic World, even if it's not going to be that great. I hope it is, because the directing behind it. But and then Fantastic Four. Yeah. So
I'm really looking forward to Superman. Everything I see from that movie makes me more interested. So I'm rooting for it.
Yeah, and then I don't want you to give away any of your rankings of Final Destination. I just want to know where you rank number 5.
Not as high as most.
Oh man, I was gonna say I hold that one in high esteem, so that's why I wanted to get your perspective there.
I like it, but for me, I'm closest to the first two, just because those are the ones that I like. I remember going to the theaters and just having a blast with them. I like all of them except for number 4. So they would all get a positive thumbs up from me. And so ranking them is not really going to be, that's not like a bottom half. There's just one shit one. And then however we decide to celebrate the other ones. But to me, after Final Destination 3, there was this shift in the franchise where it's much more goofy, a lot more CGI driven with the kills, where kind of the more serious tone of the first two I tend to miss a little bit. I haven't watched the trailer for the new one, so I have no idea if it's leaning one way or the other. But yeah, I like 5, but the thing with 5 is everybody flips out about that plot twist, but that's the only thing you ever hear about 5.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, the plot twist. And I'm like, but there's, an hour and 40 minutes before that. And so I like that one, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. That twist was cool, but what I considered a twist was the fact that, like, okay, you kill someone and then you could avoid dying, right? I thought that was such a cool mechanic to introduce there.
I agree. I wish that would have been more of a plot point in the movie. It really only kind of showed up in the third act.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Cody. I really appreciate it. Love what you do on YouTube. Still going to be watching your stuff religiously when you drop it. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, man. I appreciate it. It was fun.